This is Justin Goodman. He's from the White Coat Waste Project, which has a medical theme built into it. And what are they stopping? Waste? Oh, that sounds great. So, Justin, I saw you with an acquaintance of mine, Rich Zioli, out of Philadelphia. And I saw my friend had a post that was getting tens of thousands of views. Really, it was going viral quick, and it had just come out. You were his guest, and I watched the video, and what you had to say was the reason it was going viral. Pretty compelling stuff. Just share a little bit of what we've learned here from what Doge has uncovered in the last 2 weeks.
Sure, yeah, and thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here. White Coat Waste Project's a government watchdog group. We got 3 million members across the country, and we are specifically focused with cutting $20 billion a year in wasteful spending on animal testing. Actually, the government is the single largest funder of animal testing in the world. The U.S. government is, and probably the most notorious and worst case scenario of animal testing came true in 2020 or late 2019 when we were the first to expose that Dr. Fauci and USAID had funneled tax dollars to the Wuhan Institute of Virology for these dangerous animal experiments where they took bat coronaviruses and supercharged them, put them into humanized mice. And now, of course, the CIA, the FBI, and the Department of Energy believe that that laboratory caused COVID, killed millions of people, and caused trillions in economic damage. So we've been following the money for years. We followed the money from Fauci's pockets to the Wuhan Institute of Virology, exposed what happened there, exposed how they broke the gain of function ban that was in place and outsourced this dangerous animal experimentation to China. And we've been working to unravel the cover-up that ensued over the last 5 years and hold Dr. Fauci and others accountable, and also make sure it doesn't happen again.
All right, this sounds like a wicked term. What is a humanized mice?
A humanized mouse is when they breed mice. They could do it with other species too, but mice are common. They breed them to have human receptors, so they can have human lung cells in them or other types of human attributes. So in this case, they wanted to create a new coronavirus that could not infect humans before, and they wanted to engineer it so it could infect humans. And then the way they can test that is they will create mice that have human lung receptors and then test the virus to see if they can infect these humanized mice with the goal of creating a new virus that would be able to infect human beings.
Okay, so like the not the case is closed, but the facts are all laid out. This is no longer conspiracy theory. Anthony Fauci was doing dangerous research that was made illegal. So instead of stopping doing it in Carolina, he moved it and went in a partnership with the Chinese Communist government to open the lab in Wuhan to do things that were illegal here. And he did it with our tax money. And then when it got out, he ruined our economy, our children's education, and lied to us about it, and then kept profiting.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it was Anthony Fauci's division at the NIH. He was personally involved in the cover-up. We all now know there's a long email trail and a stack of receipts for it. But also we learned and we exposed back in 2023 that not only was Fauci funding it, but USAID was also funding the same exact laboratory and funding the same experiments in the same laboratory at the same time Fauci was. And not only were they funding that laboratory, but we got documents through a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit showing that the suspected patient zero for COVID-19 was an animal experimenter in the Wuhan lab who was doing these gain-of-function experiments and was specifically receiving funding from Dr. Fauci and from USAID.
All right. So, Justin Goodman, you're one of the founders of White Coat Waste Project, and we are spending almost $900 billion or so on Medicare every year. How much of that do you surmise is waste?
So that's a little bit outside of my wheelhouse in terms of Medicare. I mean, there's waste, fraud, and abuse across. Obviously, that's that program. And when we look at the funding for medical research involving animals, the animal experimentation, and we put the floor about $20 billion there. There's estimates as high as 87.5% of that being wasteful. The NIH actually gave an award to somebody a few years ago who estimates that 87.5% of biomedical research, especially animal experimentation, is wasteful. Yet the NIH continues to fork over about half of its budget. And it's not just the NIH. You have the DoD, the USDA, the National Science Foundation, many other federal agencies funded with our tax dollars are wasting their money on stupid and wasteful and cruel experiments. And, you know, part of the problem, too, is there's no accountability and transparency for this spending. And Wuhan is a great example. Despite what happened in Wuhan, the government hasn't learned its lesson. And we just did an expose a couple of weeks ago that broke in the New York Post, how the NIH and the Pentagon are still funding dozens of laboratories in China, including some controlled by the Communist Party, including some that are working with the Chinese military. And in one project that we just got documents for, the NIH and the DoD are paying for 300 beagle puppies a week to be force-fed and injected with experimental drugs and restrained for completely unnecessary testing in a Chinese laboratory.
Who are the
And
psychos doing this? Is there just a small strain of psychopathy in the medical industry?
I think animal experimentation certainly attracts its fair share of psychopaths and sociopaths.
Well, even if you're not one, you do that for a couple of years, you'll make yourself into. You can condition yourself to be just a person, an empath or whatever it's called. Justin Goodman, thank you very much. This is exactly what I wanted you to do on my show. This is exactly the information I wanted you to pass along. I hope the audience found it as compelling as I did.